So whenever you see one of the trinomials that has an extra number in front of it, do you see how these aren't just x squared? Like, do you see that? 2x squared, 12x squared, 4x squared, 4x squared. So if there's an extra number there, it's going to be a little bit more complicated of a problem. All right, your first step, you are going to multiply the first and last numbers, and that goes on the top of your X box. So you multiply the first and last numbers, that's what goes on the top of the X. You've actually been doing that all along. It's just that the first number was always a 1, so it didn't change anything. Can you humor me and write this down? Because like, you will actually have to know how to do this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do each of these steps with a problem as we go through. I'm actually going to skip the first one because that one ends up having a 1 in it and it's a little confusing. So I'm going to come back to that one. We're going to look at question 2. All right, so off to the side, what you're going to do is draw your X, and we're going to decide what number is going to go on the top. Good, perfect. How did you get 24? Because that's totally correct. It's 12 times 2. All right, negative 11 still goes on the bottom like usual. All right, so you just multiply these, that goes on the top. Negative 11 goes on the bottom. Now let's try and figure out what numbers we have for our X box. So what are some numbers that multiply to be 24? Good. It would be 8 times 3. Then worry about the negatives. One or the other or both is going to be negative. Well, they're both. Good. And negative times a negative gives you a positive. All right, so we got that filled in. Now go back up to your steps. What you're going to do is divide each of those by the first number and reduce them. And I'm going to show you how you can get Desmos to reduce them for you if you have trouble with that or you just want to check your answer, okay? So we're going to take each of these, our -8 and our -3, and we're going to divide by the first number, which is a 12. Do you see where I'm pointing here? All right, so you're going to write -8 divided by 12, and you're going to write -3 divided by 12, and we're going to reduce those. Now I'm going to throw the question out there and see if you can do it without the calculator, but then I'll show you how to type it in. Do you know how 8/12 would reduce? They both divide by what? 4. Good. Okay, so that would be -2/3. Okay, and I usually circle that because that helps. Watch, I'm going to show you how to do that in the calculator if that would be something you just want to check or if you struggle with. Look it. If you type -8 divided by 12 and hit this little fraction button, do you see that there? It'll go ahead and tell it to you. Do you see that? All right, so you can always go type it in. How would -3/12 reduce? -1/4. And go ahead and circle that too. I've found it helps if you circle it. And then here's your last step. I'm going back up to my steps here to write the answer. You're going to start with the denominator, which is which part of the fraction? The bottom part of the fraction. And then you just write the answer. I'm going to show you how it turns out. I'm just going to write the answer. So draw your 2 sets of parentheses. Your first fraction, which number is the denominator? 3. So it's going to be 3x minus 2 goes in that one. Do you see how I got 3x and -2? All right. And then the other one's going to be 4x minus 1. And that is your answer.
That's easy.
It's not that hard, but there are more steps than the maze you just practiced, okay? And again, I'm going to come back to question 1. That it has a 1 in it, and it just ends up being a little confusing. So we'll come back to that one. So let's go to question 3. Draw your little X off to the side. Now, this is where you practice, all right? I just explained it to you. Now you got to practice a bunch of them. What number is going to go on the top? Yep, 20, 5 times 4. And then 12 goes on the bottom. What's nice about this one is everything's positive, so you don't have to worry about any negative sign. All right, so you need numbers that multiply to be 20, add up to be 12. That would be 10 and 2. And then what you do is you take both of those and divide them by the first number, which is 4, right? So we're going to put 10 over 4 and 2 over 4. and then reduce the fractions. I'm gonna ask you, but again, you can always just put it in the calculator. The calculator will help you with a lot. Good and well said, 5/2. Did you put in a bathroom? Okay, hold on one second. And then this one would be 1/2. And then when you write your answer, you just need to start with the denominator. So draw your two sets of parentheses. What's gonna go in the first one?
2 minus 5.
Well,
2 plus 5.
2x plus 5. Don't forget the variable. You need the x there. And then this one would be,
2x plus
yeah, good. See, it's not too bad. We're just gonna practice a few more. See, you're getting it because you're listening to me. Just
Wait, what?
keep going, keep
2x
focusing.
plus 5.
So right here where you have the 5/2, you have to start with the denominator. So it's 2x plus 5, and then this one was 2x plus 1. All right, so let's try number 4, and then we'll go back and get question 1. What's gonna go on the numerator?
It's the same answer as number 2.
All right, so it's 4 times 6 is 24, -11. So you guys are seeing it, it's the same as the one above it, but it's not the exact same problem. So it is gonna turn out different. You're gonna take your -8 and your -3 and put them over. They're both negative. Good, we're gonna put them over 4.
Oh, because you divide this.
Yeah, well, you guys were shouting at me, hey, it's the same as this one, so I just went ahead and wrote it.
Oh.
I mean, you guys were like, hey, it's the same as the other one, so I just wrote it again, right? But it's gonna turn out different, because see how this one has a 4 out front and this one had a 12? Like, the numbers are different, right? How is -8/4 going to reduce?
-2 over 1.
1, good, nice job, -2/1. And then what do you think about this one?
It's hard to reduce.
Yeah, it's already reduced. It's not going to reduce any further, so just leave it. And then draw your two sets of parentheses. Now you have to start with the denominator. So what is this one gonna be?
1x plus.
Good, 1x minus 2, and you can just write x minus 2. And then this one would be
4x minus.
4x minus 3. Good, let's go back and catch number 1. All right, so draw your x off to the side. What's gonna go on the top of it? Good, 3 times 2 is 6, and then 5. What's nice again is that everything's positive. You don't have to worry about any negatives. All right, so I need numbers that multiply to be 6. Good, add up to be 5, 2 and 3. Hey, can we get it together? And then you're gonna take each of those and divide them by what? 2, good. So you're gonna put 2/2 and 3/2. This is why I skipped this one, because how does 2/2 reduce? It's like a little weird. Yeah, well, it's 1/1 is what happens there. And then what about this one? Yeah, it's already as reduced as it's gonna get, so. You just leave it. And then when you draw your parentheses, what is this gonna turn out to be since they're both 1s? Yeah, good. 1x plus 1, which would be x plus 1. And then, hey, you're on top of this. What'd you put for the second one? Close.
2x plus 3.
2x plus 3. You have to start with the denominator. It's okay, just erase it and write it the other way. You have to start with the denominator. Yeah, hang in there. We're gonna do a few more and then I'll give you your halfway through break, okay? You can do it. Now these ones, it says, remember to look for a greatest common factor first. Do you see how big these numbers are getting? You want to make them smaller. You want to see what you could divide out of all 3 of those. Hey, if you can't think of it because the numbers are kind of big, let's review this. Do you remember how to make the calculator do it for you? Yeah, GCF, and then what are the numbers? 8, 52, and 28. What's your greatest common factor? 4. All right, we're gonna divide them all by 4. So you're gonna put a 4 out front. Divide them all by 4. So what's that gonna give you? 2x squared, very good. Minus, you might not know that one, that's 13x. Minus what? 7, good. Now it is exactly the same as what we just did on the other side of the paper. The 4 is just there. So here's what I recommend doing. Leave space to do the problem and just go ahead and set it up. Just put the 4 out front, draw your parentheses, and we're literally just gonna ignore the 4. Like, just pretend it's not even there. And we're gonna do exactly what we just did on the other side of the paper, all right? So draw your little X off to the side. Yes, good. 2 times -7 will be -14. -13 goes on the bottom. You have to write this with me because that's the practicing it part. Then when you go to do your delta math, you'll actually know what you're doing. You can't do math without writing something down. How it works, all right? So what numbers multiply together to equal 14? Well, I heard somebody whispered over there, 14 and 1. 14 times 1 is 14.
-1.
Well, if you make the 1 negative, it'll be 14 minus 1 would give you positive 13. We need this one to be negative. Because -14 plus 1 gives you -13. You got it? And then you're going to take each of these and put them over 2. Good. So -14 over 2 and 1 over 2. And then you reduce them. So what would -14 over 2 give you? It's -7 over 1. And you want to leave the 1 in there. And then this one. Okay, cool. And then this one will give you 1x minus 7. And then what will this one give you? 2x plus 1. Very process driven. Let's do one more together and then I'm gonna have you try one on your own, okay? Actually, I'll have you try this one on your own because that one's a little bit simpler. Let's go down to number 7. We'll do one more together and then if I have you try one on your own and it goes well, then we'll stop with that. All right, what divides out of 16, 10, and 6?
No, wait. 2.
2, I think is the biggest we can do. I'm recording this. You can hang on for a little bit longer, all right? Dividing by 2, that will give you what? 8x squared, good, minus 5x, good, minus 3. So that 2, we're done with. What I recommend is just leave some space, put the 2 and put your parentheses so you don't forget about it. But then basically we're gonna ignore it. I'm just gonna cover it up. We're gonna pretend it's not there. And we're gonna just continue with the problem. So what goes on the top of the X box? You have to multiply these. -24, very good. 8 times -3. -5 goes on the bottom. And good. And do you guys feel how you're getting faster with that? That's building your number sets. The more of these you do, the easier that'll get. Well, is it the 8 or the 3? That's good, because we want a -5, so it'll need to be -8. The negative signs are hard. Like, that's just the negatives are the tough part, all right? And then you're going to take these 2 numbers and put them divided by what? Close.
14. Oh, yeah.
It's the 8. Okay, so you're going to have -8 over 8, and then you're going to have 3 over 8. -8 over 8 is kind of weird because that comes out to what? Yeah, -1 over 1. Which I know that's a little weird. Came out to 1.
Where'd you get the denominator?
This right here.
Oh.
That's why what I'll do is kind of put my finger over the 2 and kind of hold that there so I know like where I'm looking at. All right, and then 3/8 won't reduce any further. So what do we do for this one? What'll go in the first parenthesis?
X minus 1.
Perfect.
8x
Plus 3.
plus.
Yep, good, you got it. All right, this is what you should have had for the first step. Taking out the 5. Did that part go okay? Okay. All right, so when you go to fill this in, can you get your head up, please? Did you try this? Do you have an answer? Locked in? Okay. Hey guys, what did you put for your numbers here? Yep, good. 3 minus 1 will give you 2. We're gonna take these and put them over, get your head up. You're gonna put them over 3. Are you guys seeing that there? So how is 3 over 3 weirdly going to reduce? That'll be 1 over 1. This one's already good. So what are you gonna put in your first parenthesis? Well, it'll be x plus 1, and then this one will be 3x minus 1. If you had them written the other way around, that's totally fine.